We need to be willing to listen. But then I think on the other hand of sometimes when we do talk about race, the anger I've also seen from my white brothers and sisters. The anger that I felt as a teenager growing up when I would hear about some of the programs of helping people of color get into colleges, and in some way I felt like this was unfair. The anger I felt one time when I actually was passed up for a job, and the person that got the job, I was told I was one of two final equally qualified candidates, and the other person who got it was a person of color who was a woman. And I found myself thinking, well, I should have gotten it. I would have been more qualified. And the reality is, why would I assume that person was less qualified than me? The reality is that as white people, if we are seriously going to work to overcome the injustices of our world, if we are going to work with God to free people from the slavery that we put them in, if we are going to work with God's Spirit to bring freedom and to bring life to people who literally are being killed, it will cost us. We will have a sense that we are losing something. We will actually lose some of the privilege that we have been given in our culture for the last 400 years. That we, some of us, and I'll say for myself personally, that my ancestors assimilated into this whiteness. As Germans here in the US would not have initially been considered white, but assimilated into this white culture and have benefited from it. And so for us to fight against racism means we will lose things. And so are we as white people willing to admit to our own grief, to admit to our own times that we feel angry when race is talked about? And then the question is, what will we do with that anger? Will we allow that anger to drive us to death? Will we follow the path of Cain and allow our anger to continue to oppress others and force us not to listen to the voice of God calling us to address our own sin? Or will we, like Jesus, allow our anger to motivate us towards life, towards resurrection, towards freeing others from death and the grave? We need to make sure that we are fighting the right things, and that we are fighting for the right things. Anger in the face of loss, anger when we experience pain, is a natural response. It is not wrong. The question is, what will we do with that anger? Jesus used his anger in the face of injustice, in the face of death, to motivate him towards his mission. And so we must acknowledge our own anger without letting it control us, instead allowing it to motivate us to bring about God's kingdom in our world.